Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Silver's 10 to 1,000 time investment in the medical field, and could gold help stop the coronavirus? Let's explore. Yes, indeed, this article was sent to me by Chuck and Plata, and it's actually a dated article, but I think it is quite telling to the success that silver's had in fighting bacteria out there as an antibiotic booster. Yes, indeed, from BBC, silver boost to antibiotic success here. So adding silver to antibiotics makes them 10 to 1,000 times more effective at fighting infections, according to some research. Silver has been used as an antimicrobial for centuries, but little has been known about how it works. This research, now dated back here to 2013, suggests adding it to existing antibiotics could counteract the rise of drug-resistant microbes. Experiments in mice showed the metal disrupts the biological processes of bacteria, making them more permeable to antibiotics, as the U.S. team reports. Bacteria are adapting and finding ways to survive the effects of antibiotics. According to England's chief medical officer, Professor Dame Sally Davies, antibiotics are losing their effectiveness at a rate that is both alarming and irreversible. Silver acts against gram-negative bacteria, one of the two main types of bacteria which are particularly difficult pathogens to treat. The research was led by Jose Ruben Morones Ramirez of the Howard Hughes Medical Institute at Boston University. He told the journal Science Translational Medicine, this work shows that silver can be used to enhance the action of existing antibiotics against gram-negative bacteria, thus strengthening the antibiotic arsenal for fighting bacterial infections. And future studies will focus on testing how silver can be added to antibiotic injections or tablets for use in patients. So this is interesting. It'll be very fascinating to see where this is in the pipeline here. In fact, this wonderful metal here has so many uses out there. It is probably the most diverse metal out there on the periodic table for uses. I looked into the National Institutes of Health, and they talked about the antibacterial effect of silver ions and how they can be utilized. And in this article, talks about how silver can penetrate and break up those cells to allow for this antibiotics to work. Targets the silver ions, target DNA or RNA. A lot of science here in this particular article here from the National Institutes of Health. Very fascinating indeed. And this article was actually written after that BBC. So apparently this has been proven and utilized here as we look at this part. It started back in 2007 when they looked at this. And there's a chart here that shows the utilization of silver ions in combination with antibiotics. You can see that the values have decreased more than tenfold, which means that the silver is operating to increase its return on investment, so to speak, against those bacteria tenfold here. And so here with vancomycin, you can see here for E. coli treatment here, it is a tenfold increase in antimicrobial activity. Whereas here it talks about how this MIC value was decreased because of the utilization of silver in the treatments there. Fascinating indeed to see this bore out and how silver is being utilized with all of these different medicines to help stop these bacterium. But now its utilization for viruses is another matter. And that is where there has been some debate as to how useful silver is in fighting viruses. And This from the National Institutes of Health as well talks about metal nanoparticles and antiviral activity. It says metal nanoparticles have been studied for the antimicrobial potential and have proven to be antibacterial agents against both gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria, as I alluded to here in the previous article from BBC. Theoretically, the article goes on to say here that any metal could be analyzed for antiviral activity. However, little effort has been done to determine the interactions of metal nanoparticles with viruses. And only recently, some studies have emerged showing that metal nanoparticles can be effective antiviral agents against HIV-1, hepatitis B, respiratory syncytial virus, herpes simplex virus type 1, monkeypox, influenza, and Tasarabi, probably butchering the pronunciation of those words, but I digress. And this chart here shows that in the utilization of this, you see silver is helpful with PVC-coated silver nanoparticles interactions with other agents here that can help fight HIV, herpes simplex, and other things. But what I've found fascinating here is the closest thing we can find to the coronavirus is the flu, the influenza virus here. Now, how close is it? It may be too far away. I don't know the science behind it from coronavirus, which essentially is the common cold, and we are COVID-19 is what's going around right now around the whole world. But apparently for the regular influenza, sialic acid functionalized gold nanoparticles for the inhibition of virus binding to the plasma membrane. And so if you can prevent that from happening for coronavirus, then that can be quite helpful. And it's using gold in this particular case. It's actually the only exception. Silver is utilized everywhere else except for with herpes simplex. It is in combination with silver, but gold could potentially hold the key and potentially either treating or with a vaccine or what have you. But just goes to show you the precious metals are certainly viable options in nano and medical biological technology. Fascinating indeed to see where this is going. And we can actually go down here and take a look at how this interacts with influenza for gold. Interesting indeed. Let's see here. Nanoparticles production, how they're actually produced, is fascinating when you think about it. Production of different nanoparticles for both silver, gold, platinum, and palladium. And uses commonly available sugars. That's interesting. And so, yeah, there you go. So it is really amazing how the technology and science behind this is working. And I think I missed the section here on influenza. But nonetheless, it is interesting, and it is definitely telling, and there's some hope out there. But nonetheless, there's, a lot of this takes time. As we know, for the coronavirus, we have vaccination trials, 3 phases of them. Usually takes quite a number of years, really, and testing for other things and for treatments as well too. They've got to go through a lot of the same type of situation for some of these treatments. So we'll see how it plays out, but who knows? Gold could be a part of the solution. We just don't know yet, or maybe even silver, or a combination of, for treating the coronavirus. But the fact that we're seeing these metals being utilized in the science and to fight viruses and bacteria, I think is really promising to see out there when you have antiviral activity tied with silver and gold, and really even platinum as well. And as you saw there with palladium, or any metal could be utilized there. So there you have it. Silver, an amazing metal, proving itself again with the science, with the medical science out there. I want to extend a multitude of gratitude thanks to Chuck and Plata for sending that article to me from the BBC, and and getting me into a deep dive research into this subject. Post your thoughts below. We'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.